Okay.
All right. So, Paula.
Are we broadcasting, William?
I think we're broadcasting.
Yeah,
Right?
But we haven't posted the link yet.
Didn't I?
Oh.
Oh, yes, you did already.
Oh, we did? Okay.
So I think it's all go, and Joel will call me if I need to do anything.
Okay.
The telephone.
Can somebody tell me where to find this link? I'm sorry, I'm being a little...
It's on the YouTube page, I think.
I posted it on the event.
Not YouTube, I'm sorry, Google+.
Right.
Where exactly, he says stupidly?
Where it says, so here's the link for Monday, June 23rd on the Medieval Latin page.
Maybe if he refreshes the Google Plus page, it'll come up. It doesn't always.
Good idea.
Yeah.
That's clever.
Bitter experience.
Hi, Mrs. Jones. My teacher just texted me to let me know that we are on.
Okay.
So hi, Mrs. Jones.
That's Magistra Jones?
Yes, that's Magister Jones.
All right. I have a link posted, but it's not doing anything.
Okay.
But what do we need to? If Magister Jones is watching, then all is well, right?
Presumably, hopefully.
We have an audience of one.
Right. We don't actually need to be able to see ourselves.
No.
To think of it.
Right,
That echoes.
Right.
Right, that echoes. So that's why I'm asking for URL if somebody's got it.
One moment.
Because that way I can put that on a different computer.
I can send it to you on YouTube, on email.
Let's see.
Here. Oh, I think I just found it. I'll paste it into the chat over here.
Bless you.
If I can get to the chat. There we go. There's the chat. Come on, come on. There we go.
Come on, baby Lon.
Chat, 2 new messages.
There we go.
There we go. Does that work for y'all?
Yeah, I see it right on the right-hand side. For me, anyway.
All right. Are we ready to translate? Are we ready to get this done?
Sure.
All right. Paula.
Okay.
We're at 7.3 in case anyone's lost it. We're quid multa, and Paula's we're gonna go over this. Most of them have done it already, so we're gonna go fairly quickly, we think.
Okay.
Paula.
So I'm going to go to the first part, to the beginning of number 2, 8.2.
Right.
Okay. So, what more I mean, this is kind of rough, but I was trying to keep the grammar flavor. The beautiful spectacle was granted to me that day, whence a recalling to mind of Solomon, he's talking about Proverbs 6:6, us sent to the state, and the note said cleverness, I kind of like state better, of ants, and minds unwilling or sluggish under such example, roused up or encouraged, /encouraged, I was seized by disgust with captivity, and both longed for the cells of the monastery and desired a similarity with those ants, where it was in the middle, I think the note also said in common with, of work, and with nothing of which to be near, all things were with all. I think that means everything was equal. You want me to continue?
Stop there and draw breath for a minute.
Yeah.
Way back at the beginning, this is really basic Latin teachery stuff. Latin teachers really like it when you don't do the English thing about changing an active into a passive.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You said something like, the beautiful spectacle was given to me by that day. The grammar, of course, is that day gave to me a beautiful spectacle, right? Accusative,
Yeah.
verb. And for people at this coming out of first-year Latin level, I really want people just to see what the basic grammar is, right? It's not that what you said was wrong. It's just
No, I know what you mean. Yeah.
close to the text. And then I think you got this, but it was very quick. Unde recordatus Salomonis, what does recordatus modify?
Oh, let me just go back over this.
It's masculine singular.
Yeah, it's a record of Solomon.
No, I think it's a participle. I, having remembered Solomon, I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah.
I should probably give you recordor. Recordor is a deponent verb.
Well, I was looking at Lewis from Lewis and Short, and it translated it as recordatus as recalling to mind of.
Yes, but only as an adjective, presumably, unless it's it's not a fourth declension noun, is it? I don't.
No, recordatus?
Yeah.
Well, it's recordor.
Right.
No, I think it would be second, wouldn't it?
Well, it's a
first.
It's a first conjugation deponent verb.
Right. Well, it's not feminine. It's masculine.
Right.
But,
and it's not a noun. Is my point. So it's having remembered Solomon, right? Taking a genitive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Good. All right. Do you want any other questions about that first paragraph? That's all I can remember. Let's go on to 8.1.
And they can be masculine or feminine in this text, right? Illa, dies, illa, right?
Dies can be masculine or feminine, kind of, I think, anyway.
Okay. Because I just had a question mark there that maybe I didn't notice last time.
Keep going, Paula.
Okay. This one was kind of weird, I thought. With return to bed, so I think it's having returned to bed, basically. Mm-hmm. The woman ran up.
Uh-huh.
I could not lie with an expression, the sadness of spirit. So I was thinking the lie with like I couldn't make a happy face, basically.
Right. I couldn't hide the sadness of my mind with my face.
Right.
Right.
She asks, I think we're talking historic past here, historic present here, sorry. Why am I so lifeless?
Uh-huh.
She heard the causes. The urge to flight, it is not despised.
Hortor. Right. Also a first conjugation deponent verb.
Yeah.
Sort of surprising. I urge to flight.
So I want to flee, basically.
Right. Well, I said we should fly, is what, like, presumably I urged her.
Oh, you mean I urged her to flee?
Yeah,
okay.
Well, they were both going to fly.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then she didn't reject the idea.
Right.
Okay.
I sought silence.
Mm-hmm.
Historical present again. She allotted faith. Kind of translated more loosely as she threw in her lot with me.
Her fidem triplet?
Yeah.
Say she threw in her faith. In other words, she put her faith in me.
Yeah, but I was also thinking that this is still a Roman society with lots. And so it can be translated as faith, but it can also be translated as lot. So I was kind of thinking there's more of the game of chance kind of aspect to it. That if you're throwing in your faith with him, it's kind of like you're throwing your faith on God, because God is the one who decides how these things fall out.
Well, yeah.
Chances in God.
I think that's implicit in the whole. In this story, if she's giving faith, then faith is in God. But I think all it means in terms of the Latin is put her faith, I guess, in him.
She chose to trust him.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Keep going.
Okay. Now this next one was weird. By the whisper of a yoke.
With a constant whisper. There's this eugum, which is yoke, is a much more common word. There's also this adjective eugis, euge, which means constant, which is what here. Which is much better in the circumstance. So with continuous whispering.
Okay. I'm kind of more used to that. This sort of intermediate period Latin. I've done patristic Latin before, and it's kind of, when you're talking about Augustine, it's one thing. You're talking about Jerome, it's kind of different. Medieval Latin is extremely literal. It's like the people I translated were basically half the time semi-literate in Latin, and it was not their first language by any stretch of the imagination, and so they were basically point.
Yeah.
And they were really literal. Sometimes to the point of using vernacular grammar.
Oh, sure. Well, we'll see.
Unnecessary prepositions.
We'll see that in Malchus. When we get to Brendan. The much more tangible point is here with Yugis. It's a classical word. It's just not very common, and it's. I don't remember ever seeing it before, but
I've never heard it in my life.
So it's just one. It's reasonable of Jerome to use it. He's allowed to use words that we don't know.
Yeah. Well, that's how we learn.
Yeah.
Okay. So the last part, I was thinking. It says we waver in the middle. I was thinking between hope and dread.
Yep.
Okay. So like on the balance between hope and dread, kind of like a knife's edge.
I think we talked about this last time before the computer kicked out. In my original version, I had a comma after medii, and I think Bruce persuaded me that was a mistake. It's really just medii fluctuamus. We fluctuated in the middle.
Yeah.
Medi is just the adjective modifying us. Good. So.
Can I?
Bruce, yeah.
One thing. Yeah. The very first clause of 8.1. I think William is right about the note, and right here, and that we need to supply mihi, so it's the woman ran to or met me returning to my bedroom or to my whatever it was.
Yeah, like an implied mihi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could be.
That makes sense.
You could imply and have it be an ablative absolute. May regress.
It sort of came out as an ablative absolute. That's not what it is.
Yeah.
It could be, I think, I think you're right that it isn't.
And it would translate basically the same way because English doesn't really use ablative absolutes anyway. So, I'd like to know which, but.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Paula.
Okay.
Lucy.
Okay, so there were in my flock 2 goats of marvelous size. Having killed these, I made leather bags, and of their meat I prepared provisions for the journey. And we've got a recurrence there of Viatiki from 3.1. And with the onset of evening, with the masters thinking us to be sleeping in our private quarters, or sleeping in private, we entered on the journey, carrying the bags and parts of the meat. And when we had come to the river, for it was 10 miles away, with the bags inflated and mounted, we believed that making small rowing motions in the water with our feet, and being carried downstream by the flow, and entering much further along than from where we disembarked on the opposite bank, this last part I was a bit quite get. I think it's essentially the trail following us would be destroyed or lost.
I think sequentes is the subject there.
So right. So the following trail.
The people who follow.
Okay, right. So that's what I thought initially. Actually, the people following would perhaps lose the trail.
Right. Grammatically, it's this thing that I always find difficult in Latin. This very loaded use of the participle. Sequentes homines we would have no trouble with, the men following. But sequentes by itself, as meaning the men following, is just harder to intuit.
Sort of implicit that someone is doing this.
I think Jamie's exactly right. That's what's going on. Before we go back to Aquis nos credimus,
Okay.
I think that as we trust ourselves to the water, right? We entrust ourselves rather than a statement about what we believe.
Right,
Okay.
because we wouldn't say credimus ut, would we?
We
Necessarily? We would have credimus with an infinitive to say we believe that.
good grammar, but I just think more to the point. Credimus with the dative makes perfect sense.
Yes, it makes much more sense in every way, I think.
So I think that it's the trick is we learn credo as trust, but it also means entrust.
Okay.
You know, you can entrust your dog to your brother with credo. Presumably, I just made that up. I'm not sure you can. So yes, we entrusted ourselves to the water, and then Bruce suggested in his notes to me subremigantes, paddling little by little with our feet, so that with the river bringing us down downstream, and further than and farther down than when we entered, into the opposite bank from the one that we entered, the people who were following us, imperfect, lost us. No, people who were following us were losing us. We're losing the trail.
What's difficult there is exponente. It follows is with flumine, which you lost a ways back in that line.
Right.
Fulminate differente, yeah.
Good, Lucy. Do you want to keep going? Or is that the end of your thing?
That was the end, I think, yeah.
All right, well, hold on. We've got lots of space for volunteering later on, I think. So, Victoria, we're on to you.
I think so. But between these things, or meanwhile, the meat getting wet, had gotten wet, and falling out in part, promised scarcely Vic's food for 3 days. We drank up until satiety, preparing ourselves for future thirst.
Good.
Historical present, we ran. We looked always behind our back, and promovimur was, and we were promised, we were forwarded, we were moved along more in the nights.
Right, we were encouraged by the night, I think.
Encouraged by the night.
I think we talked about this last week. I think basically it means we made more progress during the night.
Mm-hmm.
We were moved along more during the nights.
Both because of the snares of the widely ranging Saracens, and because of the very intense heat of the sun. And we talked about this. I am miserable that I am terrified even referencing it, recalling it. Is that what we came down with last time?
Mm-hmm.
And now secure, though now secure, I shudder through my whole body, nevertheless.
Right. Which is kind of a cool little moment. It reminds you that Jerome is hearing this story from Malchus, and Jerome is replicating that authenticity. Right. The old man, even now, is shudders in recalling the adventure.
Incidentally, he gives away the end at the beginning. You know Malchus must have gotten out because he's telling the story, right?
You said he was an old man at the beginning, yes.
Right. Well, so we know he survived, but that's the great I mean,
Right.
we watch all sorts of detective stories knowing that our heroes are going to survive, right?
Right. Yes. So it's still very exciting.
Yeah.
Spoilers are a very recent invention, I think.
I have a question about a word. I'm kind of surprised to see Saracanus so early. Does anybody know when this started, when that word came up? Because, I mean, we're back practically at the Parthian period.
Yeah, it's classical. I mean, the Greeks and the Romans talk about Saracens. I'm pretty sure the Greeks talk about Saracens. Originally they're a tribe in the Arabian Peninsula.
Right.
Whether that's what they are here is not clear. I mean, it may be a word for Bedouins or desert nomadic desert brigand kind of people.
Right.
Yeah, they seem to be more Bedouins in this from the way they're dressed and stuff.
Right. Because the classical era used the word a lot less loosely than, say, our author of the Gesta last year did. Right.
Right. By the time of the Gesta, it's
right.
It's right.
Right. It's basically all of Islam, right?
Right.
By the time of the Gesta.
Yeah, it's right. It's Muslims, and we know they're not Muslims. Yeah.
Well, I mean, in some cases they're not even Muslim; they're just Arabs, and there is some distinction where you have Moros might apply to, say, Spanish Muslims.
Right.
But a lot of times, the further north you get, the more you hear things like Moros and Saracanus used interchangeably, because these people have never met an Arab or a Muslim, and they think they're all a bunch of pagans, and they have no clue really what they're talking about. As far as they're concerned, they're like headless monsters in, Africa, kind of thing.
Right.
But Jerome presumably has met Arabs.
At least his narrator has.
He's from the Middle East, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
His narrator obviously has.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, good. Victoria, you've got another.
So after the third day, we saw far away at a distance, with doubtful sight, dimly presumably, two people seated on camels, who came quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And my mind immediately, having a presentiment of evil, thought that the Lord was meditating our death, was thinking over our death, meaning his master, his slave master, and perceived the sun to darken. That we had a long conversation about.
Oh, yes.
Metaphorical, and we believed, or we thought it was as if the sun was blackening before me.
Mm-hmm.
And while we feared, and while we recognized that we were being betrayed, showing ourselves by the footprints in the sand, there appeared to the right a cave extending far beneath the ground.
Good.
Right. Literally, that nos produtos intelligimus. We recognize that we had been betrayed. Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's a part. We had been betrayed by our footsteps in the sand.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Eagle, do you want to kick it up?
Yeah, okay. Then, after being afraid of the animals, they got serpents. Among those animals, the vipers, the lizards, and the scorpions. They certainly took shade due to the boiling heat of the sun.
Before you go on, Siegel, I'm not sure. I didn't hear all that. And again, if you can talk more closely to your microphone or speak louder. But after scorpions, Keitaraque huyus gemodi. How did you translate that?
No, I didn't translate. I didn't say it out loud. Other animals of that sort.
Oh yes, good. Okay, right.
That
That we're hiding from the heat of the sun. Yes,
were
good.
hiding from the heat of the sun.
Right.
We surely entered the cave seeking shade, but right then at the entrance
Don't go so fast. The the doesn't Petere Umbras, isn't the subject of that all those creatures?
Yeah.
The vipers, the scorpions, all that stuff, hiding from the sun, are in the habit, solent Petere Umbras. They're in the habit of seeking shadows. So that's why they were afraid. And then in traumas quidem speluncam, we enter the cave anyway. The quidem is really hard to translate. It's just a kind of shrug of the shoulder words like, we entered the cave. We entered the cave anyway. Something like that. You have to get a little creative with quidem. It doesn't in itself mean very much. It just means something is kind of going on that's, in this case, it means it's sort of surprising that despite all of those scary creatures that they think are going to be in the cave, they enter the cave. Good. I like all the scary creatures. It's quite exciting. Keep going.
But right then, we believe of the left pit, although not beyond. Wait a minute, I got a little bit mixed up.
Before you go on, Siegel, I'm sorry, we still can't hear you very well.
Okay, can you hear me now?
But also, again, credimus here is in trust. In the very entrance, we entrust ourselves, credimus nos. So nos is technically reflexive here. We entrust ourselves, sinistrae foei, to the left-hand ditch, or a left-hand ditch, a ditch on the left side.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah. Although not beyond while proceeding, it means we didn't get a chance to proceed a lot.
Right, not proceeding very much.
Not proceeding very much. While we were trying to flee from death, we were actually coming forward to it.
Yes, but
Exactly.
that nay.
Running into it?
So does everyone get what construction the nay is? Nay with the subjunctive?
Yeah.
Right.
Somebody say it.
Lest while we are fleeing death,
Right.
we might run into death.
Right. So it's a negative purpose clause. In order that it not happen that while we escape death, while we flee death, lest we run into death. Right? Nay in English is often quite easily translated or well translated lest, if you don't mind the archaic English. It's quite helpful to throw in a lest. It gets that negative purposeness. Lest we run into death while we are escaping death.
And seeing as how we're all here translating medieval Latin for more or less the fun of it, I doubt any of us mind being a bit archaic.
Not at all.
We're doing it on computer.
Yeah, but I'm going to squawk at perchance.
At what?
So that.
I'm sorry,
Is
Bruce.
that why incurremus is subjunctive?
Yep.
Okay.
It's a
Perfect.
negative purpose clause.
I said I draw the line at perchance.
Oh, perchance.
Well, there are good modern replacements for perchance.
All right.
Well, in English, the funny thing is in English we do it a different way entirely. We'd say, while we're fleeing death, so that while we're fleeing death, we don't run into death.
Yeah.
Right. In order that
We'd
not
put it in,
is the other way
we'd
I've
put
heard to
it in-
translate nay.
We'd put it in the present indicative, yeah, which is why lest is useful.
Keep going, Siegel.
Okay. So while we were considering this, whether the Lord will find us miserable, we will have peace, and if the Lord will help us will help us as miserable, we will find peace. And if he perceives us as sinners, we will reach our grave.
Right, we'll have a grave. Yeah, and I think there's clearly a play on words between salutem and sepulchrum. It's a kind of jingle that's meant to be emphatic. We will have safety. We will have
safety or a sepulcher.
Safety, sepulcher. That almost works.
Or salvation.
It works about as well as it does in Latin.
Sepulcher.
Right, salvation and sepulcher works fairly well.
Because honestly, it's a pretty bad pun in Latin. Too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's not really a pun. It's more of a kind of verbal echo.
Right.
Which they do, let's face it.
Mm-hmm.
Good, Siegel. Keep going.
Okay. What do you think of our spirits? What of the fear? When not long before, we have stood in front of the cave, the slave and the master. In the indication of a footmark, they have arrived at the hiding place.
Good. Somebody's got a very weird. Is anyone sharing an office with a gerbil?
I'm sharing an office with two dogs that are playing with a toy. You want me to put them out?
Squeaky toy.
Well, I don't. I sympathize. I have two of the most annoying dogs in the world.
They're insisting on. They decided that I'm ignoring them, so they're insisting on playing. And I hope that the three cats want to get on the act.
Put them in your lap and pet them, and then we can watch. But never mind. So going back over Siegel's last sentence, Siegel, again, I'm not hearing all of this, but I think you know that animi, quid putas nobis fuisi animi, is genitive singular. What do you think to us there was, or what do you think we had, animi, of mind, of that partitive construction that's so common? What of mind do you think there was to us? Namely, what do you think was in our mind? What of terror do you think what we had? When before the cave were standing the master and his fellow slave, and when they had now come, perveniscent, pluperfect, to our hiding place, and that vestigio indice is tricky with our footmarks as I think you got this right, as the indicator, or the index is really a betrayer. An index in classical Latin is an informer. So with our footprint as an informer, that's how they found us.
That's why you have your index finger pointing the finger, right?
Yes.
Pointing the finger at someone.
In accusation, yes. It's not
right.
a very nice finger to point with. I'm not sure there are any good fingers to point with. Any questions?
I think it's interesting that we've got some of the parallelism that later medieval Latin is so fond of in here. You know, that you have vipers and scorpions. That you have, we are trying to avoid death by not running into death. It seems repetitive to the modern mind, but the Middle Ages, they love doing that. It's, you know, that very similar constructions, or a lot of times nouns, to say the same thing but sort of magnify it.
Yes. This does strike me as a very interesting sort of borderland between the kind of classical Latin we normally get and the kind of, you know, semi-literate medieval Latin. that you were talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good argument for putting the Middle Ages back to this period.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Let's not.
Oh man, if we start talking about chronology, we will never get through this.
I mean, I understand that it has to do with Constantine and everything like that, but also if you're actually looking at some of the other trends, like what is happening in Latin at this time, Jerome's very influential. You know, I don't know. Maybe Jerome is the one who had medieval people loving parallelism. I don't know. I don't know if he was the only one who's doing it at this time. So
it's pretty standard Latin rhetorical tricks. So anyway, anybody want to volunteer for Alexander's point? Part? Victoria, you're always good for volunteering.
Okay. We're starting with molto.
Right, a new definition of volunteer. Yes.
And we discussed this at length too. Death is way worse when you expect it than when it just comes on you. So, oh, much graver is the expected than the somethinged death. The death sprung upon you or the death at hand.
Or inflicted?
Again, with work and fear, my tongue stuttered. And just as I did not dare, well, we discussed this one too, just as I did not dare to cry out to God, so I did not dare to mutter, cry out to the Master. I was the one going for God, and everybody else, I think, agreed that it should be small d.
You know, I'm starting to be converted. I think you might be right about that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well,
it seemed completely plausible when you did it just now.
Yes, it certainly works.
Okay, so just as I didn't dare shout, I didn't dare mutter either to someone, God or Master. He sent his servant, and so that he might draw us from the cave. He himself held the camels, and with drawn sword awaited our coming.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, almost just about by 3 or 4 cubits, having come in. Oh dear, this is the part where
the servant having come in. Meanwhile, the servant having come in
by about 3 or 4 cubits, and we seeing from our hiding place the back of him, for the nature of the eyes is of such a kind that after sunlight, all things are dark or hidden, the one entering the shadows.
Mm-hmm.
His voice rang out through the cave. Come out, I have to look up the inside. Come out, gallows bird. Come out, you who are about to die. Why do you stand there? Why do you delay? Exit. The Master calls you.
Good.
Or the Lord calls you. We had a discussion about that too.
Yeah, that one, I don't know why I capitalized that, Dominus. That's got to be Master.
I think so.
Yeah.
I don't know what I was thinking.
Someone in authority is calling you and you should come out now.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Good.
Just go on from there, or
Sorry?
do I go on from there, or is that the volunteered part?
I think you're done volunteering for the time being. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is it really servant or is it slave?
Oh,
Considering the period.
Either one.
both. Servant. I mean, servant. They use the word servant in slave society all the time.
I know, but I mean, in later periods, it's not clear necessarily if Saros really means slave or servant. So I'm just wondering if we can just assume at this period that it's slave.
I guess
It's
it's
also a servant, like a higher ranking slave or something.
I don't know.
I don't know because also remember these are Saracens, not Romans. So we've got an account by an Eastern Christian of what this guy's title was. So I don't think we're ever going to find out.
Right.
Kind of like the Lord thing. Yeah.
Okay, good. Mona.
9-7.
Yeah.
Ad hoc loquebatur, as yet he was speaking. He was still speaking. And lo, we see through the darkness, per tenebras, a lioness has attacked the man.
Mm-hmm.
And his throat having been strangled, guture suffocato,
Yep.
drag him inside, intro, but I think it means even further inside.
Yeah, I guess so.
You can drag him inside bloody. Good, Jesus. What terror then for us? What joy? We were watching our enemy perish with our master not knowing.
Good.
Domino nescente.
Yes. Good.
Qui cum videret, who when he saw that servant cause a delay, he imagined that the two resisteri were opposing the one.
Good.
But non valens, not being able to defer or put off his anger, as he was holding a sword,
Yep.
he comes, or he came, depends if historical present or not, to the cave. And clamore rabido, with frenzied shouting, reproving the indolence of the slave, or the servant, he was seized sooner by the wild beast than he reached our hiding place. Haha, gotcha. Attacked by the lion before he could get there.
And this is Timesis of Prius quam, right? So it's really before he was seized by the beast before he came to our hiding place. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Sounds better, but mine sounded more mysterious. Number 9. Quis hoc who would ever believe this? That a beast would fight for us in our sight, before our face. However, that fear, sublato altum illum metu, that fear having been subdued, a similar violent death, where sabatur was sort of turning or unfolding before our eyes.
Good.
Except for the fact that it was safer to endure the rage or the ferocity of the lion than the anger of the men. Of the men, more than one man.
Good. Perfect. The one sublato, I would just translate remove, right? So Pharaoh.
Yeah. Okay, right. Removed.
With the fear having been removed.
But I think he's just talking brave there. I think they were still pretty scared.
Well, he was afraid.
One thing, that's true.
So
right. This fear, that fear having been removed.
Right, that's true.
Right.
It could have been another lion.
Right.
Also, and lions represent the devil. From Peter, be sober, be vigilant, for the devil, like a roaring lion, goeth about seeking whom he may devour, whom resist steadfast in the faith. So there's probably that running through his head too.
Right.
But a lion, remember, is also the symbol of one of the Gospels.
And St. Jerome too.
Right.
Well, it's ambivalent. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Because in the prophetic books also the Messiah is the Lion of Judah, and certainly Jerome also knows that. I mean, he translated them, right?
I will say, at the risk that this is the old pedestrian historian, it is a lioness, not a lion.
That's true,
Right.
yeah.
Let's face it, if you're in a cave with a lion or lioness, symbolism might not be uppermost.
On your mind.
You know,
You're not checking
Right.
out.
Well, except that this is rather obviously, this might be a good reference to Victoria's saying that he didn't even dare cry out to the Lord, as in the Lord God, rather than to the Lord standing at that was coming after him.
The
because
master.
this is practically a miracle.
yes,
You know, I mean, yeah.
but I'm just saying it's a miracle of a lion. That's
Right.
Mhm.
Sometimes a lion is just a lion.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, I'm not even sure just is the word, right?
One more thing, and then maybe we should leave lionesses. There is an apocryphal piece of the gospel, the Acts of Paul and Thecla, an early martyr. Thecla, they condemn Thecla to the beast, and they toss a bunch of lions into her. But in fact, the lionesses save her. They keep the male lions away from her. Jerome may well, again, he's a Bible scholar. He may well have this in mind.
Could be a reference to Sekhmet, the Egyptian goddess who is a lioness. She's a bit more positive than a lion. I don't know. That might be stretching it. But it is the 4th century, though, so there are still pagans around. So
Right.
Also lions.
that's true.
Okay, thank you, Mona.
Oops, I think, do I still have another section? 9, 10? Did we do 10? No.
No.
Go ahead.
Okay, Habemos intrinsecus. We are quaking with fear on the inside. And we, not even daring to move, await the outcome of this circumstance or this thing, Ray. Among such great dangers, with only the consciousness of our chastity, surrounded as by a wall.
Bingo.
Right. Surrounded by the conscience of our chastity, as though by a wall.
As though by a wall.
Right. Surrounded in the sense of fortified, right? Protected.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Good. And actually, Mona,
Next is
yes, so Mona, you remind me that we should that people have said that it would be helpful to remind people of where we are. So it's a little late. I'm sorry, but we're in section 9, chapter 9, section 11, where Jamie picks it up.
The Aina insidias cavens, the lioness being careful of the traps or dangers. Et visam se esse sentiens, and understanding herself to be observed, apprehensum mordicus catulum matutina effert. In the morning, carries, we're back into the historical present, in the morning carries her cub picked up with the teeth, nobisque cedit hospitium, and left the place to us. Neque tamen, but nevertheless, satis creduli, believing enough, statim erumpimus, we did not come out immediately, not from the neque, sed expectamus diu, but we waited a long time, et egredi cogitantes, and thinking of going out, illius nobis semper figurabamus occursum. We always imagined to ourselves, or we always imagined to us a meeting with her.
Good.
Okay.
Good. All right.
Sub tali ergo terrore et illa transacta die. Thus, under such fear, et illa transacta die, and that day having passed, eximus ad vesperam. We went out in the evening, or towards evening. Vidimosque camelos, and we saw the camels, quos ob nimiam velocitatem dromedarios vocant, which on account of their, or which from their great speed are called dromedaries, praeteritos chibos in ore volvere, chewing over their previously eaten food in the mouth, et in alvum missos iterum retrahere, and bringing back, or we saw them to do this, we saw that they were doing this, and bringing back the things already sent into the stomach, or belly. Quibus accensis, having mounted these, or these having been mounted, literally, which having been mounted.
Yep.
But in English, we'd probably actually say we mounted them, and et novasitarcia refocilati, and having been revived, we having been revived with fresh provisions, decima tandem die, together on the 10th day, ad Romana per desertum castra venimus. We came to the Roman camp in the desert.
Yeah, that's tandem at last, right?
Tandem at last, that's right. I knew that. Oblatique tribuno, having gone to the tribune, rei ordinem pandimus, we unrolled the state of things to him. We explained the state of things to him.
We told him the story.
Right. Oblati,
Right.
how did you translate oblati?
I'm really not sure.
It's so from affero, right? And it's passive, so having been brought.
Having been brought,
And then
right.
to the tribune. We
Okay.
tell the story.
Good, okay. That makes sense. Inde transmissi ad Sabinianum, then sent over to Sabinianus, Mesopotamiae ducem, the commander of Mesopotamia, camelorum accepimus pretium. We accepted the price of the camels. Or we received the price of the camels.
Good. Why do you keep going?
Okay, oh, is Lisa not here?
No.
Okay. Okay. Et quia jam abbas ille meus dormierat in domino, and because now that abbot of mine, that doesn't sound the same in English, my abbot slept in, or had fallen asleep in the Lord, had slept in the Lord, ad haec delatus loca, I having arrived at that place, or when I, having arrived at that place, me monacis redo, I return myself to the monks. I just get this mental picture of him handing himself in like an overdue library book. Hanc trado virginibus, I give her, that is the girl that he sort of didn't marry, to the virgins, diligens am ut sororem, loving her like a sister, non tamen e me credens ut sorori. But nevertheless, not trusting myself with her like a sister, basically.
Right. And I find that kind of puzzling. Did you all talk about what that means last time?
We did.
We did, at some length.
There's sort of a spiritual marriage between the two of them. So,
But is the last point that he didn't, that if he was in a spiritual marriage, but he didn't trust himself to
keep it that way?
To keep it that way, the way he would have if she'd really been his sister.
That's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
That's what I thought, and that was it was one of the ideas.
Okay. That's the only sense I can make of it. It's just an odd. It's an odd thing. I would have just expected him to say, "but not trusting myself." Ultimately,
Right.
Yeah.
The notion that your sister is so sacrosanct is nice, I guess. That's really all I got to say about that.
But the other thing that is still bothering me is that truly seems to me to contradict the setup at the very beginning of the story, where he saw these two living together and went and investigated and asked around because he couldn't figure out what the bond between the two of them was.
Right.
I just have to say I'm still bothered by that.
Well, people have commented on that inconsistency. So it may just be that they lived in parallel. After all, if there was a community of monks and a community of nuns,
We
close
talked about
proximity,
that.
they could spend time together, and that's when they could have met. He could have met them.
Right. Or I thought of something, the explanation I thought maybe was that as they got old, they came to trust each other, to trust themselves more, and they grew closer again as they got old. I don't know. I don't really know anything about medieval monastic regulations, so someone who knows more would have to weigh in there.
It depends on the period. It really does. This is a very early period, and it's just when they're starting moving away more from the Hermetic tradition into the more of the people living together, and you still have convents where you have monks and then you have nuns, but they don't live necessarily in the same building, in the same enclosure, because of course otherwise they would probably be getting together. But it really, I think in this period, it really depends on who's doing what, because this is pre-Saint Benedict.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Okay, good. Anybody want to volunteer to wrap it up?
Okay.
Yeah, I was supposed to keep going, I think, if I'm doing Lisa's bit. But if anyone else wants to finish, they can. I don't mind either way.
Victoria, you'd better urge Jamie to finish.
Go.
Okay. Haec mihi senex Malchus adolescentulo retulit. This, the old man Malchus told, basically, to me as a young man, Haec ego vobis narravis senex. This I, as an old man, have told to you, et castis historiam castitatis expono. And I expound to chaste people a story of chastity. Virgines virginitatem custodire exhortor. I encourage virgins to preserve virginity. Vos narrate posteris. You tell this to those coming after, ut sciant, in order that they may know, inter gladios, inter deserta et bestias, among swords, among deserts and beasts, pudicitiam numquam esse captivam, that modesty or chastity is never captive, et hominem Christo deditum, and a man given to Christ posse mori, can die non posse superari, but cannot be conquered or overcome.
Yeah. Kind of a good ending.
Yeah.
And we finished in an hour.
All right, that's not bad.
Do you guys want to keep going?
Sure.
I'm game.
All right.
Yeah.
I think I'm supposed to invite Jen if I can. Just give me 1 minute. She's signed up. Oh, don't tell me she's not in my list. Oh, there she is. Yes. Okay. See if she comes in. And I guess without further ado, we just race down a few centuries. Now for something completely different.
Right.
We can talk about this more, obviously, in the next few weeks. Um, Karen Ruff is a big expert on Anglo and Hibernian Latin, certainly way more than I am. I'm sort of kind of blown away by some of these things. And we can also, I don't know, wring our hands about some of the facts and some of the geography. It's all very unclear, it seems to me. But let's just start, I say. I think is Jamie. So Jamie,
It's still me.
Right?
Okay, first of all, a warning. I'm going to mangle the names. They're already mangled by being put into Latin, and I am so bad at pronouncing Gaelic or anything like it that this is not going to sound like anything in the world when I pronounce these names, but I'll do my best.
It could be American.
Right, American.
There's Jen. Hi, Jen.
Hello.
Hi, Jen.
Greetings.
Salve.
That's still her picture.
Yes, I don't know if she's actually...
There
There she is. Salve.
Hi.
Later.
Okay, section 1. Sanctus Brendanus, Saint Brendan, that I can do. Filius Finloca, Nepotis Alti, the son of Finloch, the descendant of Alte, de genere Eugeni Stagni Len, of the tribe or family or clan, I suppose. Can you say clan in this context? I hope so. Of Eugen, of Lake Lynn. That's proper name. Good. Of the region of the men of Munster arose, or was born, basically. He erat ver, he was a man of great abstinence, great self-control, self-restraint, and famous in virtues. The father of almost 3,000 monks, or about 3,000 monks. Comeset in sua certamine, when he was in his struggle. In loco quidicitur saltus virtutis Brendani, in the place which is called the pass or wood of the miracle of Brendan. Contigit ut, it happened that a certain one of the fathers, that is a certain priest, ad eam, to him, quadam vespera, one evening, venicet, had come, nomine Barinthus, by name Barinthus, Barnitus, or Barvitus. I told you the names got mangled. Nepos Neil, the descendant of Neil.
Yep.
Cumque interrogatus esset multis sermonibus, when he had been questioned in many words a predicto Sancto Patre by the aforementioned Holy Father, cepit lacrimari et prostrare se in terram, he began to weep. He apparently, this priest Barinthus, began to weep and to fall to his knees on the ground, et diutius permanere in oratione, and to remain a long time in prayer. How you can begin to remain, I'm not sure, but anyways. At Sanctus Brendanus...
I can actually give a sort of an answer to that, is that starting in the early Middle Ages, you'll see a lot of authors, I think maybe insular authors more than any others, but I think this is where it gets started. Use coipere plus an infinitive really as a substitute for the imperfect. So I think what happens is he was
Wise.
crying and staying in prayer for a long time. We saw this use in the Gesta Francorum too.
Bruce,
Well, that makes a lot more sense.
do you know if that's the same construction as in Middle English, where gone, which is to go, plus or begin with the prefix, plus an infinitive is kind of just acting as a simple past?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's the way it goes, Mona. Same thing.
It's analogous to that. That's true.
Great.
That's a good analogy too.
Thank you.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, but Saint Brendan raised him from the earth, et osculatus est eum, and kissed him, dicens, saying, Pater, cur tristitiam habemus in adventu tuo. Father, why do we have sadness in your coming? Nonne ad consolationem nostram venisti? Haven't you come for our consolation, for our comfort? Magis laetitiam tu debes fratribus preparare. You should prepare more gladness for the brothers. Indica nobis verbum Dei. Tell us, or make known to us, or point out to us the word of God, atque refice animas nostras de diversis miraculis, and restore our souls by means of various miracles or marvels, quae vidisti in oceano, which you saw on the ocean.
Good.
I'd just like to say that Magus sentence, if we can be a little loose, I think he'd say, you really should be modeling happiness.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I don't want to start too much of a discussion, but why is Berinthus crying and prostrating himself after this trip? It makes no sense to me. What's he got to be ashamed of?
Yeah, as far as we read, I actually wondered the same thing. I couldn't figure out by the time we got to the end if he was crying because he'd had to leave the island. The trip was finished, or he was headed back to his monastery, wasn't he?
I don't know. I don't know why.
Does he regret that he
ever went?
No, that he's had this marvelous experience that his fellow monks haven't had.
It's kind of like the gift of tears, like he's sort of so overcome spiritually that...
Like overwhelmed and having a reaction.
I think it could be any or some combination of all of these things. I agree, it's not clear. It's up to us to figure it out.
Okay.
Has he spent this voyage alone? Has he been basically a traveling hermit?
Well, he's been traveling to this other island full of other monks, as we're going to learn in 1.4.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, my only question was whether possibly he wasn't supposed to have gone there. That he's supposed to be staying in his monastery, and he's been kind of wandering around, sort of AWOL. But it doesn't say that. So I didn't understand. That's all. I'm glad it's not obvious to everybody else, I guess.
The Irish monks of this period were more extremely ascetic. Well, yeah, that too. Extremely ascetic than continental monks. The Iberian asceticism was rather notorious for that, and so tears might be seen as a sign of sanctity and falling down and crying might be seen by an Irish monk, especially when these guys were going off to islands and doing all those heroic things, as the appropriate response. And that maybe this monk is more of the continental variety who's kind of going, what are you doing? kind of lines of Saint Benedict of, you don't need to be always doing extreme stuff. So I don't know. I'm not far enough into this yet, so I'm not really sure. But that's a possibility, I suppose.
Okay. Well, if anyone can figure it out, let us know. All right, Lucy, back to you.
Right. Okay. So Tunc Sanctus Barinthus. So then Saint Barinthus, explicis his Simonibus Sancti Brendani. So with these words of Saint Brendan having been completed, cepit narrare de quorum insula dicent. So began to relate of this certain island, saying, Filiolus meus Murnoch, so my young son Murnoch, procurator pauperum Christi, so steward to the poor of Christ, or steward of the poor of Christ, confugit a facie mea et voluit se esse solitarium, so fled from my care and desired to be by himself in solitude. Right. Invenitque insula juxta montem lapidis. So, and he discovered an island next to the mount. Well, I've got mountain of stone, but there's a variety of names in the footnotes under this. So a mountain in County Donegal. Nomine deliciosum. So, with the name the Island of Delights, or delightful place. Post multum vero temporis. So after a very long time, nuncitatum est mihi quod plures monachos habuisset. So it was declared to me that he had many monks with him, or he had many monks, and that God had shown many wonders through him. Itaque perexi, so and thus I made my way ut visitasem filiolum meum, so that I may visit my young son. Cumque apropinquasem per trium dierum iter. So after a journey of 3 days, right. So he, in occursum mihi festinavit cum fratribus suis, and that's he with his brothers hurried to meet me. Revelavit enim Dominus sibi adventum meum. So the Lord had in fact revealed my arrival to him. Navigantibus nobis in praedictam insulam. So having sailed with us to that, is praedictam in this sense meaning kind of just aforementioned island?
Exactly.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. And he just says it a lot. It almost means the island.
Right. Okay, so the island. So yes. So having sailed with us to that predicted island.
Before you go on, navigantibus nobis.
Oh yes.
Is just a plain old ablative absolute, right?
Oh right. So with us having sailed.
Right.
To that. Oh yeah. Sorry.
Maybe it's to us.
Actually, I've got that. Sorry, I was just mucking up my notes. Right.
It's a present also. We're sailing, right? It's a gerund.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's dative with occurerunt. They met us sailing.
Right.
All right. They met
Not
us
an
sailing.
absolute.
Yeah, that's what I did.
Thank
Right, that
you.
makes sense.
I think that comma might
Having
be,
sailed with us? Okay.
So having
if the comma weren't there, I think it would be clearer. They
Right.
had sailed.
Okay. Thank you.
okay, so are we to assume that this is them coming to the island and the brothers or the fellow monks coming out of their cells on the island coming to meet them?
Yes.
Right. So that's right. So the brothers hurried out to meet us as if they were a swarm of bees departing from their different cells.
Good.
Okay. Gonna drop there. So there was in fact scarce shelter of them on the island. There was in fact of them scarce shelter, but however they were in accordance in their manner of living, in faith, hope, and in their affection. I got for that bit, so that's in et caritate, and in their one repast, and they were always united in the work of God.
Good. The one thing, though, I think habitatio eorum sparsa, I should probably gloss that. I think that just means that we would have to say their habitations were scattered. Right, so they've come out of their different cells. You have to imagine an island full of little individual cells.
They lived far apart.
Right, they lived far apart from each other, as far apart they could on a tiny island. And they all come out like a swarm of bees.
Now, what I had a different idea, but I gotta confess I didn't go to the dictionary for it. I thought that this was referring to the asceticism. Basically, their dwelling places were very spare.
Oh.
But maybe it doesn't mean that.
So, because I sort of, when I was reading this, I had it in my head that it was kind of, in spite of it being quite spare, they were sort of living in this manner, and so that's kind of why it was preferable to them. But
it's like even though their living conditions were kind of crummy, they had this harmonious community. But you'd have to get a meaning for sparsus that really does that.
I was taking it sprinkled or scattered almost from.
Yeah.
That's how
that's more. Yeah, that's how William took it. So.
And that would be the living far apart in different places.
Right. It's worth saying, in case anyone wants to care this much, and they might, that one should, I think, on all of this, consult the the Oxford Dictionary of what is it? What is the long, complicated dictionary of English and Irish Latin?
Latham.
Latham. What's the abbreviation for Latham? It's the
R.E. Latham. I think I've got it.
Word list, something.
Yeah.
Something.
Medieval Latin word list of, I don't have it with me right here, from old English or Latin and Irish sources or something.
Right, that one.
The 10-volume one?
Right. It was just completed about a year ago.
Oh yeah.
We have it in the library, but I don't own it, and it costs.
There's this one, which is specifically from, no, it's all reversed, but specifically British and Irish sources.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Actually, we can see it the right way around.
Oh, okay. Shall I hold?
No, it's a camera. Yeah. Exactly.
Right. Okay. One more sentence. Nihil aliud cibi ministrata nisi coma et nuces atque radices etc. genera herborum. So there was no other food. Is ministrata sort of to mean cultivated? So there was.
I would say given, offered to them.
Oh, right, minister. Okay.
Right, a minister is a steward.
Okay. Yeah, because I was kind of because I sort of translated it as that, but I was sort of speculating as to what it meant in context. But so there was no food offered to them other than apples, nuts, and radishes and other types of plant.
Yes.
All right. There was actually a sort of difference there because I was working from a version I just found on the internet before I looked at this one. instead of Ministrata, they've actually just got Monstrata, so it's sort of shown to us. But I guess, as you've just said, that has much the same meaning.
There's an edition, I think, in the Latin Library, which is based on text that precedes Selmer's text, which was published in something like 1959.
Right, I think that's what I was working from initially.
It's not perfect either. There's a lot of textual dispute, but everyone seems to stick with Selmer at least until something better comes along.
And radices here is not necessarily radishes in particular, is it? It's any kind of root. Although at this point, not yet the Irish potato.
No. No.
So chestnuts.
For the voyage.
It's kind of a paleo diet.
So neither fruit nor chestnuts nor radishes nor any other herb.
Or except, I think it's
Right. That was
nothing but these.
Oh, except any other herb. Okay.
Right. And in fact, I think
They're vegans.
there's quite a focus on vegetarianism later on. Good. Victoria.
1.5, but after Compline, the single monks remained for Manserunt in their single cells continuously, usque ad, the song of the roosters or the beat of the bell. That threw me totally, campane, that is a genitive based on the
Yes,
end.
you have to get used to it.
The striking of the bell.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
It can become your friend.
But with me, dative absolute, me wandering about, however, wandering about the island and staying up all night, my little son, is that protege? Or just little son? My little son led me.
I think that would probably be a sort of affectionate diminutive at this point for his quote son, the man who had been in his monastery, right?
Okay.
He's been calling this guy that sailed off to be by himself and has collected these monks around him. He's been calling him Filiolus this whole time, I think.
You would probably just say friend.
Okay.
You know.
But anyway, he led me to the shore of the sea toward the west, where there was a boat, and said to me, "Father, get up into the boat, and we will sail. Let us sail to the west, to the western region, to the island which, is called the land of the promise of the saints, or the promised land, which God gave to our successors in or for the purpose of the end time."
It's going together.
Yes, so.
That's an early manifestation of manifest destiny.
So the purpose of the island is you can't have it yet, but it's your earthly paradise when the end time comes.
So they can't have it yet, but they're going off to look for it.
Well,
right, because presumably
That becomes apparent later, I think.
What?
As becomes apparent later, I mean, sort of like they're told not to go past a certain point.
Right. Well, presumably it's a place of wait for the end time.
Wouldn't Plagum translate?
Exactly.
what's that?
Wouldn't Plagum translate better as beach or shore?
Yes, I've always thought of it as shore.
Yeah, from the French.
Yeah, well, the other way around, but
I know. Yeah.
But it also does mean direction. In classical Latin, even. So I think that's really the western, because to the western shore to the island doesn't make as much sense to me as to the western direction.
Western shore on the island, maybe?
That's not what Plaga means.
I'm sorry, what?
That's not what Plaga means. I
What
mean, if it
doesn't
was a
mean?
beach, it would be it would probably be a litus.
Okay. So
So I
what
think
does
plaga
plaga
really
mean?
is zone.
Like area,
Yeah.
like area or region, kind of.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know that's what it says in the note. I'm just.
Right.
Okay,
But
yeah. I think we should go with the note.
well, you're going with the Oxford Dictionary.
Right.
I'm just a
You're
humble.
good.
I'm a
Yeah.
humble vessel. All I do is look things up.
And we appreciate it very much.
Oh, that's great. Let's go onward, Victoria.
So with us ascending, getting into the boat and sailing off, ablative absolute. Ablative? Yes, ablative absolute.
Yeah, that one is perfectly good.
The clouds covered us totally from every direction. So much so that we were scarce able, vix potuissimus, to see the stern or the prow of the boat.
Good.
With this space having been traveled through, having gone through this space for about an hour.
I think the space of about an hour having been passed through. In other words, after about an hour.
Okay. Space of an hour being okay. A great light shone around us, shone upon us, and a very spacious land appeared. Great or exuberant with foliage and fruit-bearing trees.
Good.
Lush and with fruit-bearing trees. When the boat had stood upon the earth, stayed upon the earth, we got off of it, we ascended to the earth, and we began to walk around and to explore through about 15 days that island. And we were not able to come upon the end of it. Nor did we see an herb or a grass without flowers, or a fruit, or a tree rather, without fruit. For the stones of that place were of the precious sort. I assume that means verily even the stones of that place were of the precious sort.
Yeah. You get that nihil herbe videmus is again that partitive genitive. We see nothing of herb without flowers and nothing of trees without fruit. Nothing. In other words, there are no plants without a flower, without a blossom, I guess we would say, and no trees without fruit.
Can I ask about the Pomferos square? Is it an apple tree or a fruit-bearing tree?
I just did fruit-bearing, but
Yes, in classical Latin, poma is something like it's a smooth-sided, round fruit, often translated apple, but not necessarily an apple.
Okay.
Right, crab apple. There are various other things, most of which I never even encountered in my whole life before.
Pears would count, wouldn't they?
Sorry?
Pears would count, wouldn't they?
Pears, right, pears is a... I
did
don't.
they have
I should have voted.
apricots and peaches and things like that?
I think possibly, except I think that they're not smooth-sided. I mean, peaches aren't smooth-sided. Nectarines obviously are. I don't know. It's clearly vague.
Quinces, William. Quinces.
Quinces, above all. I don't even know what a quince is.
I'll tell you a story about that later.
Okay. Good. I think we're descending into trivialities, so we should move on because we're serious people. So Mona, we're at 1.7.
Okay.
Good. Take it away.
Quinto decimo die. Next, then on the 15th day in Wainimus, we found a river. Vergentum ab orientale parte, a river sort of sloping downwards from the eastern part understood of that island.
Mm-hmm.
Ad Ocassum to the west.
Good.
While we were pondering or thinking about all these things, it was uncertain to us, what we ought to do. So, imperfect subjunctive, what we might do.
Right. It's a pluperfect subjunctive, but that's...
Oh, I'm sorry, pluperfect, right.
But it should be probably an imperfect.
Imperfect. What we ought to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
like the other one, yes.
Right.
And it pleased us to cross the river. It seemed good to cross the river.
Uh-huh.
But we awaited God's counsel. When Valerimus, we were discussing or turning these things around, discussing these things among ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
a certain man suddenly appeared, Coram, before us with great brilliance, sort of like in a great light, who at once called us by our own names, and he greeted us, saying, Euge, good, you've done well, good brothers, for the Lord has revealed to you Istanterum, this land here, which Daturus S is going to be given to his saints. However,
Mona, before you go on, it's all perfect except daturus est is that future paraphrastic,
which is will be given, to be given,
which he is going to give.
Oh, okay.
Remember that the future. This is the future.
Oh, right, which he's going to give.
So you're so used to thinking of that participle plus
right.
the as being passive, but it's active, which he is going to give.
To his saints.
Good.
However, the middle of this island, Insulae Istius, is up to that river there.
Good.
And it is not allowed for you to cross Otarius beyond or cross to the other side. Therefore, Revertimini, return whence you went forth, or whence you departed, which you left.
Is revertimini an imperative?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
And unde, did you? I wasn't hearing your unde. That's I would translate that whence.
Whence. That's what I said. Whence.
Oh, okay, I just couldn't hear your.
Whence you went, whence you departed, or whence you went forth. Existis.
Is that literally a present?
Revertimini?
Mm-hmm.
No, well, that can be a present as well. That can be a present indicative as well as imperative. It's clearly imperative here. No, existus.
Oh.
No, that's perfect.
Perfect. Right.
Yeah, that's perfect. When she went forth. Yeah.
Wait,
the I think, is a doubled I. It's writing a single I for the double I, so it would have a macron over it, exists. Right. But it's absolutely perfect. It can't be present because it wouldn't have the STIS. It would just be existis in the present.
I'm mixing it up with existo. That's my problem. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I think I said went forth or departed, so perfect.
Yeah,
past tense.
That's right. That's right.
Okay. Cum haec dixiset, when he had said these things, I asked that one, Ilum, where he might be from, or by which name, vocaretur he might be called. He said, which one said, why do you ask me whence I come, or how vocer I am called?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you not ask me about this island here? As you see that island, modo, now or just now, so has it remained from creation, from the beginning of the world. Are you in need of any food or drink or clothing? For S, you are, present tense, on this island for a year, and you have not tasted food of food or drink, de potu.
William, I'm not. Go ahead, Mona.
You have not tasted either food or drink. You have never been either oppressed or overcome by sleep, nor has night covered you. For it is always day, without any darkness or blindness of night. Our Lord Jesus Christ is the light, of this island here.
Good. That the Kekatara Tenebrarum hic. I think the hic is presumably hic. It's always day here without any darkness of shadows here.
Oh, right, here. I'm sorry, left out here.
I should add a note on that. And I have a misprint in the second sentence of 1.8. It's obviously you obviously got it right. Interrogas day.
I was about to ask about that.
Yeah, no, that's just.
Is that right, William? Because I found it somewhere else in a different text.
Oh, well, I still I mean, I can't think what else it would mean.
No, it has to be right, but I did think it was really strange.
It could be weird spelling on the part of the original author. We've certainly had some of that.
Well, anyway, I at the moment I would just work on misprint, because if I'd noticed it anyway, I would have glossed it, because it doesn't make any sense to me the way it's spelled.
Yeah.
So,
That's not a Latin word, as far as I know.
I don't have my Selmer in front of me. I should. I'll get a hold of a copy.
William, the other thing is that the 2 lines down, non gustasti kibo out de potu. Are we either missing a day, or do we have a day in the wrong place?
Sure. I'll have to check that.
It's really weird.
Right. I think possibly I've left off a day. Again, because otherwise I should have tried to explain that, because it is strange. Again, Mona powered through it.
Right, I just kind of figured out that it was either just understood or not there.
Yeah. Good. It does flow way easier than Jerome.
Yeah.
It's why I like these texts. It's just fun to just be able to read along. I realize those are cheap thrills and not worthy of us, but
it's a good story too.
But it's late. Well, right.
Can I ask a quick plot question?
Sure.
The angel says you are here for 1 year. They've been there 15 days by their account.
Doesn't that mean you're going to be here?
But then he leads them away, doesn't he?
Leads them back to the shore, I think.
Yes, this is actually a pretty common feature of these kinds of enchanted or mystical islands and places where you go there and it turns out that you've been there a lot longer than it seems like, right?
Yeah.
It's common to fairy stories. You go to fairyland, and fairyland time moves much more slowly than it does in the real world.
Right, and you come back and all your friends and relatives are 80 years old.
Yeah, very common Celtic.
Or the other way around. You think you've been away a long time and nothing's happened.
Right, depending on the type of story.
Yeah.
All right. But you're right. I was trying to figure that out. Good. Seagull, you haven't fallen asleep yet. That's amazing. You're a model to us all.
Immediately we started a walk, and that man arrived with us as we were a minute. This was an ablative absolute, right? The next.
Yes, but before we get
Yeah.
there, usque ad litus, he arrived with us all the way to the shore.
Yes, all the way
Right.
to the shore where our boat was.
Okay, good.
However, due to the arrival in the ship, when that man was torn from our eyes, he disappeared. And when we arrived before darkness to the delightful island,
Okay, stop for a minute.
yeah,
The ablative absolute, I would just say, when we got into the ship, but when we got into the ship,
when we
that
got
man was taken from our eyes.
okay,
And we went per praedictam calignam through the aforesaid darkness to the island of delights. Okay?
yeah, I think so. But when we saw the brothers driven away, being separated, or something like that, because of the great exile, and concerning our arrival, plorant, we were wailing, we were crying.
It's they were crying,
Can,
right?
can you
They were
start at the top of that, the beginning of that sentence again? Go back to ad ubi fratres. There was some interference and I didn't hear it all. Ad
for
ubi
me.
fratres nos viderunt.
But where we saw the brothers.
Again, ubi can mean where, but it can also mean when, just as often.
Okay, when we
So
saw
when we saw the brothers.
When they saw us.
Sorry, when the brothers saw us. Right, when the brothers saw us.
Yeah, that's right. When the brothers saw us, driven away. So the brothers were driven away.
Where's driven away?
I think exultabant.
Oh no, they exulted. They rejoiced.
Oh, okay. Okay, so they rejoiced. They were rejoiced in a great joy.
Right, they were rejoicing in a great joy.
At our arrival.
Exactly.
And they were crying about our absence.
Yes.
A great portion of time,
right.
Saying, why have you sent away our father while the wandering sheep are without a shepherd in this wood?
Hold it a minute. The patres is vocative. Why, fathers,
Okay.
have you sent away vestras always, right? Your sheep without a shepherd wandering in this wood.
Yeah.
Okay? My students often confuse nostras and vestras.
Yes.
And it's so basic, but it's so easy to confuse because they're so similar. My trick is just to think. If you think of the V as a U, it'll remind you of you. That's a cheap trick, but it works, right? So why, fathers, have you dismissed your sheep without a shepherd wandering in this wood? Keep going.
But we didn't know. We have repeated or renewed that us separated for a certain time. No, I got it a bit mixed up.
Let's go back to the beginning of the sentence and let's take it as much as we can word by word. Knowimus.
Knowing this,
We knew and then we expect an indirect statement. We knew that Abbatem Nostrum,
our abbot,
our abbot, we knew that he frequently, Quenter, discedere a nobis discedere. We know that he frequently discedere has departed a nobis
has departed from us.
From us. Good. In aliquam partem.
For a certain period of time.
Oh, I think it's more geographical. We know that he's left for some place, for some area.
But we did not know where.
But we didn't know where. And we knew that our abbot Ibidem, in the same place, Comorari.
He stayed 1 month.
Right.
Sometimes for 2 weeks or 1 week, more or less.
Right. Right. Good. So we know he's been on trips, sometimes for a month, sometimes for 2 weeks, sometimes for a week or more. Good. I don't quite understand the significance of that at all. If that makes anybody feel any better.
And after I had heard this, I caught that they comforting.
Okay. Hold it a minute. I'm now assuming that you're going to learn this. Everybody out there in Radioland is going to learn this new weird thing that you have to get used to. And I find it for 30 years, KP has meant I caught, exactly as you said, Siegel. Mm-hmm. But in medieval Latin, if we use the medieval spellings, it's coipi, C-O-E-P-I. And that means I started to comfort them. And as Bruce says, it's almost just an imperfect, I was comforting them. So when I had heard them, I think we can still translate it as koipi. I began to comfort them. Decans eis.
I began to comfort them, saying to them, refuse, brothers, to think anything without grace.
Don't think anything except a good thing. In other words, you shouldn't think anything bad. You should think nothing except something good.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
Mm-hmm. I don't know quite how to explain that, but I'll try and think about that. Keep going.
Your frequent use in distance.
Where's procul dubio? Procul dubio is an idiom in classical Latin too, means far from doubt or without doubt.
Without doubt, okay.
So your conversation, you're going to be spending your time without doubt. Your time spending is going to be ante portam paradisi.
It's going to be before the gate of paradise.
Right. Good.
Here closely in the island called the land of the promised saints.
Yes, but notice it's est, right? Here close by is the island.
The island
which is called the land of the promise, the land promised to the saints.
Land promised to the saints. Where the night does not descend and the day is not finished.
Good.
Could he describing an area near the northern polar?
I assume so.
At that place, your abbot was having the presence of Murnoch. The abbot is Murnoch.
Right, your abbot Murnoch was hanging around there.
Was hanging around there.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, you don't really want to say hanging around, I guess. Visit, often, haunt is what I've got. Frequent. Depends on how casual you want your medieval Latin translations to be. Good.
An
One more.
angel, an angel of the Lord guarded that place.
What tense?
Custodied. I thought this was perfect.
It's custodio. I'm thinking out loud. Custodio, custodiere, custodiwi, right? Custodiere.
Oh, okay. So it's
Yes,
present.
Right,
Guarding.
so it's present, right, which is actually much more powerful, right? There is an angel of the Lord guarding him, guarding it. The island, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Guarding the island.
I should explain that. Good. One more sentence.
Yeah. Did you not know, due to the order of our clothings, that we have been in the paradise of God?
Good. Okay. It's exciting. Jen, you volunteered to do another chunk?
Yep, this is me.
Great. Thank you. How have you been, by the way? Just
I'm
one
good.
moment. Good.
Good. Almost done with school for the year. So.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Yeah, the kids were done last Thursday, but I have a whole week of tech PD this week, learning how to use our new Mac laptops that the district got. So.
All right.
Almost there.
Almost there.
All right, section 111. Then the brothers responded, saying, Abbot, noamus, we know, which is one of those verbs that's the perfect tense of nosco. So nosco is to find out, like cognosco in the past sentence. So in the perfect, it means we now have found out, therefore we know. So we know that you have been in the paradise of God, in the space of the sea, but where that paradise is, we do not know. For often we have examined the fragrance, the redolent fragrance of the clothes of our abbot returning from there in a space of 40 days. There I remained for 2 continual weeks with my little son, without food and drink. We had some bodily satiety to such a great extent that we seemed filled with new wine. And I wasn't quite sure whether to take the ab aliis, we seemed to other people as though we were filled with new wine, or whether it was going more closely with repleti. We seem to have been filled by other people with new wine.
I don't know. I mean, as classical Latinists, of course, we want it to mean the second thing, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But I wasn't sure what that would mean, so.
Well, I don't. I mean that you were filled with new wine. Somebody had to do the filling, I guess. But you're right. I think
Is this referring to, as kind of a metaphor for the spiritual fulfillment that they've been getting all along here for a while? Those are the alii?
New wine in old bottles.
I don't. I hadn't given it enough thought, and so I don't have an answer, and I don't know if anybody else does. We can always check the with any luck. There's all sorts of intelligent conversation about this on the YouTube channel, which will solve all of our difficulties. That's my hope, anyway. But you're right.
Sort of like they're full of new wine. We seemed full of new wine. Ab aliis maybe compared to the others, compared to the other monks, or I don't know. I have a question by that too.
I agree with Jim. Sorry?
Well, it could mean that we seemed, I don't know.
I mean, it could technically be, I suppose, we were seen by others, right? in other words, taking video as a wideor as a passive of video rather than a verb, a deponent verb meaning to seem, which would take the dative. Right, that would get you where you wanted to go, and I agree with you that that's where I would have want to go too. But I will have to spend some time with a dictionary, or looking, or asking for help on the internet. Keep going.
But after 40 days, with the blessing of our brothers and the abbot having been received, I returned with my companions so that I may return to my cell, to which I will go tomorrow.
Good.
112. With these things having been heard, St. Brendan, along with the entire congregation, fell to his knees on the ground, glorifying God and saying, "The Lord is just in all his ways and holy in all his works, because he has revealed to his servants," I guess here, "such great and such wonderful things that are so great and so wonderful. And blessed in his gifts, because today he has refreshed us from such a spiritual taste."
Yes. Good. Presumably that day means by.
Yeah.
Yeah, by me. Yeah, with a. You'll see that a fair bit. What we'd expect is an ablative of means has a day tossed in front of it. You'll see that a fair bit in medieval, I think, in medieval style.
Okay.
Thanks.
With these words having been finished, St. Brendan said, "Let us go to the refreshment of the body, so let's go eat, and chew the new instruction." But with that night having passed, with a blessing of the brothers having been received in the morning, he went, St. Berinthus went to his cell.
Good.
Is there meant to be a comma there?
No.
You mean after fratrum?
After
No,
Berinthus?
after Berinthus.
Oh, probably not.
Okay.
I want to tell you part of the fun of this slightly wonky technology is that what I heard Jen say was, let's go to the refreshment of the body and to chew our order. When she just said to the new order.
Yes.
Did you guys figure out frequentatur in 110 while I was having tech trouble?
We didn't even have any trouble with it.
Frequents or haunts? Yeah, I think it was haunt or frequent. He frequents or haunts this place.
Yeah.
But it's passive.
It's deponent, right?
I think it's a deponent verb. It's deponent, yeah.
Sorry?
It's deponent.
Yeah, it's deponent.
I assumed it was. I couldn't find it in any dictionary.
I found it in
Am I drunk?
Yeah, I found it in Latham.
Ah. Because I could not find it in several things. Thank you. I figured that was the only possible explanation.
Thank you.
Frustor.
Okay, I think.
Great.
We've all been heroes, especially.
Look at how much Brendan we did.
Right.
Without even practicing in 1 hour.
Right. It's all wonderful. Well, thank you all.
Thank you.
you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And good night. Everyone go back to bed as you should. All right. Take care and maybe see you next week.
Okay.
Much better. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.
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 We're going to stop the broadcast. Wait.